My name is Joan, and I just wanted to introduce myself to you. I'm starting a new YouTube channel, and the name of my group is Grieving with Joan. And I felt compelled to come on at this time because of what's going on in the world. It seems like I do a lot of research all day long. And it seems like every channel I go into and every chat that I see, so many people are talking about losing loved ones, losing friends, losing parents, losing children, and it just rips my heart out. They're hurting, and I'm going to tell you right now, after losing all of my family throughout the years, and what I thought was the worst was walking into my father's apartment and finding him dead in a recliner, and having to go through that and a bunch of grief therapy. I continued every couple of years losing more and more relatives. My dad had a very large family. My mother's family was already gone. But then in 2010, my 35-year-old son, who was married and had a 7-year-old child, at the time I was working at a hospital in the emergency room registering patients, and I'd just gotten home from work, and he said to me, he says, "Mom, take me to the hospital." And I'm like, "What's the matter?" And he's like, "I'm having a tough time breathing," he says, "and I'm getting a pain down the right arm." Well, after working in the medical field, the right arm didn't set off any alarms to me. The difficulty breathing, that really didn't set off alarms to me because he always battled with bronchitis. So being that it was in December and it was cold outside, I told him, I said, "Go stand outside for a few minutes, breathe in that cold air, and see if that doesn't make you feel any better." So he did, and he came right back into my room and he said, "Mom, please take me to the hospital." And so I got back in my car. Mind you, I was only home from work, not even an hour, and got back in my car, and he got in. We headed back to the hospital, which 17 miles trip. And about halfway there, he looked at me and he said, "Turn around, I'm feeling better. I don't feel like sitting in the emergency room all night. Take me home." So he convinced me to do that, and just as we were reaching the edge of our small community, he looked at me and he said, "Mom, get me an ambulance right now." So I drove directly to the police station. I ran in. In my subconscious, I knew heart attack, but my brain didn't want to register that. You know, mothers have a mental block to that kind of reality. And so I ran into the police station and I yelled for an ambulance. And when I went back out, and I was out in the front of the police station with my son, he was walking around in circles and just wouldn't stop, just kept walking in circles. And a police officer came out to be with us, and he told my son, "Sit down, relax, and just sit down." And my son looked at him and he says, "If I sit down, I'll never get back up alive." At that point, I knew. I knew it was a heart attack, and he was very scared. Well, then the ambulance showed up. They loaded him up in the ambulance. Got to the hospital, and I was following the ambulance. got to the hospital, and as soon as they got him in, the immediate CPR started. Well, working in a hospital, I knew he coded in that ambulance. And my coworkers worked on him for over 20 minutes. And the doctor came to me and he said, all that time, his heart didn't even flinch. He said, I'm so sorry. Well, immediately I started screaming. I was so angry at God. I was screaming at him. And my coworkers were hugging me and they were trying to calm me down. And it was, I thought walking in finding my father dead in his chair was bad. There was nothing in comparison to finding your son having a heart attack in your car and then following along and then seeing him in the very emergency rooms that I go into every night, work second shift, and to see your son laying there dead. So, long story short, I continued to work there for about 10 months, and then I had a mental breakdown. Sought out therapy again. So this is my second long bout of therapy, and it worked out pretty good. After about a year, I looked at my therapist and I said, I really don't think there's much more you could do for me. I said, I think I'm better. I think I've learned to accept, and it's time to move on. And he said, not so fast. He said, I have something to ask you. And I said, what's that? And he said, he's got his mother living with him. She's ill. And he's afraid that he's going to go through what I went through with my father. And he said, when that day comes, I would like to be able to call you, and I'd like you to be my grief therapist. And I was just shocked. I looked at him and I said, seriously? Why would you choose a patient to talk to you at that kind of a time? He says, because I have never met anybody who went through the level of death between aunts and uncles and your father, and then more aunts and uncles, and then your son. He's like, I don't know anybody who's more qualified than you, and that includes therapists. And he's like, it's not so much, school. It's your personal experience. You know all these feelings. And from there, he asked me to run his grief group that was there at the facility, and it was a mental health facility. And so I did, and I did that for almost a year. And then I came back and to my, online, I'm seeking out different groups, and I ran into this mental health community. It was an organization that was online. And I went into their grief group, and their grief counselor talked about her cat. And I'm sitting there and I listened for a couple of days, going in and out of the room, and it was always the same thing. She never touched on the loss of humans. And so I started throwing questions at her and talking, hey, I need therapy for family, for my son, for my father. And she just ignored me. And a little while later, I got contacted by an administrator of that website. And they got rid of that grief therapist and they asked me to take it over. Which, that just blew my mind. And so I did. I ran that grief group on that website through that mental health company. And they addressed all issues, alcoholism and mental disabilities and grief. And so I ran that. Ended up making a career out of it. I did have 1 year of psychology that I took. Never went for my degree. And so I have plenty of experience, personal experience. But I do want to tell you right now that life can be pretty depressing after you go through such a hit like that. People always come up to you, always, and they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, and if there's anything I can ever do for you, just call me. You know, I'm here for you." Okay, thank you. And then they walk away. Well, I've learned that in grief, we all hit rock bottom. Like any other situation, we do hit rock bottom. And we end up reaching to those very people that said, "Oh, I'm always here for you. Call me." And then when you do, they don't answer the phone. Or if you run into them in the street, they're busy. "Oh, it was nice seeing you. I gotta go." And so they can't handle what you need from them. They don't know how. It was a catchphrase. "Oh, if you need anything, call me." And then when you actually do, nobody's there. So that's what I'm for. I am seeing all this death on all these websites. I'm seeing all this documentation of young athletes dying. Just talking to people, local people. "Oh, this one died. Did you hear that one died?" And the death rate has just been soaring. And I don't want people to hurt. I don't want people to bottom out and everybody deserts them. So I want to be there as your helper. I want to go through it with you. And I'm going to make websites. I've got if you want to contact me, it's grievingwithjoan@gmail.com. You can contact me. I do have a Zoom room for private meetings. You could email me and we'll set up an appointment through email and we'll have a private session in a Zoom room and one-on-one, you and me. Everything that you say to me is totally confidential. It is nobody's business what is talked about in those Zoom rooms. And I don't charge anything. I refuse to charge anything. This is not something you make money off of. I am doing this strictly for the betterment of humanity. Because you know what? Nobody should ever feel alone at the worst time of their life. And for that, I want you to contact me. I'm going to be going through all the stages of the grief, and it's not only grief of death. It's grief of other things. It's lost material things, homes, cars, personal possessions. In these financial times, people are getting their homes repoed, they're getting their cars repoed. Fires, they lose everything. Theft, they lose. You grieve these things. I mean, you could see my shelves back there. I've got pictures on there of, the son I lost, and God forbid if anything happened to those pictures, and it would devastate me all over again. So there's a lot of reasons. And then tragedies, hurricanes. Oh my God, look, we just had a hurricane in Miami. Look what that, not Miami, but in the Tampa area in Florida. Look what that did. There's all your belongings, your personal memories, photograph book, just everything's gone. It's gone. And tornadoes and volcanoes, and there's so many different tragedies. And then you've got relationships, divorces, relationships with family members, siblings, parents, kids. Right now we're all thrown in a huge political arena. And we're told to pick a side. Okay, we picked a side. Okay, our family and kids are on the other side. We go to talk, and no matter how hard we try not to cross that barrier of that, don't talk about that, somebody drops a trigger word, and the conversation comes up, and that's like Thanksgiving dinner. We just had Thanksgiving. Politics get brought up. How much tension was at that Thanksgiving dinner? And so relationships are a big part of it. And another part of it is pets. I'm such a dog lover. I used to do dog rescue. My dogs are like my kids. In fact, my kids always used to say, "Mom, you think more of those dogs than you do us." And I says, "Yeah, well, they don't talk back. You do." But it's true. But they're unconditional love that those animals give. They don't care what wrong you do. They don't care who you are. They love you. You're not going to find that in any human being in this world. But you will in your pets. So I put pets right at the top. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a brief idea of who I am, what I'm about, what I plan to do, and then I'm always here for you. And if you have any questions, send me that email, grievingwithjoan@gmail.com, and we'll make arrangements to talk. In the meantime, I'm on Telegram. Just type in Grieving with Joan, and my channel will come up, and you'll be able to hear my live segments every day. It was very nice talking to you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, and always remember, we're in this together. You're not alone. I'll always be there for you. God bless you all.